In recent years, we have seen a rise of far-right nationalism all over the world. In many countries, far-right nationalists came to power. From India, with Modi's government and popular rules designed to isolate India's 200 million strong Muslim community, to the United States, with Trump's anti-immigration travel ban and Mexican wall. Yet it's particularly Europe, with its quite complex political landscape, which has witnessed sudden shift toward far-right nationalism in recent decades. Far-right parties and groups have been enjoying increasing support across Europe. Such parties regularly perform well in domestic elections, often occupying second or third place and in some cases joining governing coalitions. They are no longer derided or dismissed by their mainstream rivals. Far-right parties now show themselves capable of winning nationwide elections. Last year, France's National Rally, Italy's League and Britain's Brexit Party won the most votes in their country's elections to the European Parliament. But not only that, far-right parties' coalition Identity and Democracy in European Parliament has shown how coordinated their policies could be. First summit of far-right leaders took place in January 2017. The aim is to outline the Europe of tomorrow, said Le Pen at that time. It means far-right nationalists are able to act as consolidated European power, unlike mainstream parties. Let's have a look at what they have in common. Although parties of the far right have some differences, they also share some key characteristics. I'm interested in challenging economic and social inequality. They develop their popular appeal on the following: hostility to migrant and religious minorities, disdain for multiculturalism, EU skepticism, but the main defining feature of far-right parties today is nationalism.
Chcemy Polski niepodległej, chcemy Polski zakorzenionej w tradycji, chcemy Polski, która jest wierna wierze w swoich przodków, wierna tradycji chrześcijańskiej, chcemy Polski, która jest zdolna do oporu przed naciskami globalistów, przed naciskami Unii Europejskiej.
How do today far-right nationalists position themselves? The rise of far-right parties in Europe isn't new, so if we go back 2 or 3 decades ago, we might find that there were ups and downs in electoral support of far-right. But what is new today is that far-right nationalists now permit mainstream ground. Today far-right parties try to distance themselves from fascists of the past in order to appeal to broader electorates, arguing that they do not distinguish people on the basis of blood, race or color. But in fact, instead of that they play with the boundaries of toleration. They say we exclude those who are intolerant with our liberal democratic values. Of course, such rhetoric makes them look more legitimate and attractive. Who is responsible of making far-right nationalism legitimate? The answer is mainstream parties themselves. In recent years, they appeared eager not only to cooperate with far-right nationalists, but use their toxic agendas in own interest. In 2017, after the parliamentary election, Sebastian Kurz, leader of center-right People's Party, reached an agreement on a coalition with the far-right Freedom Party, setting the stage for himself to become a Chancellor of Austria. 2 years later, despite the Ibizagate scandal that broke out in May 2019 and led to the end of the coalition with the FPO, alliance with the far-right pushed Austrian conservatives in the whole country sharply to the right, raising the question who is co-opting whom. In 2018, Boris Johnson has caused controversy among the Muslim community and his fellow MPs by claiming that women wearing burqas look like letterboxes and bank robbers.
Felt by already vulnerable Muslim women when they are described as looking like bank robbers and letterboxes. When will will the Prime Minister finally apologise for his derogatory and racist remark?
Even in Germany in October 2019, a prime mayor was elected in the state of Thuringia with votes from both the CDU and the far-right Alternative for Germany. By voting with the AfD, conservatives in Thuringia shattered long-lasting political taboo of having any relations with the far-right. This is precisely why it's becoming increasingly difficult to distinguish between what is far-right and what is mainstream today. As a result, European society probably faces the biggest challenge because parties of the far-right are becoming more and more dominant at secular values promotion and driving party competition. It looks much more frightening taking into account their agenda-setting power. Whenever the far-right get majority of votes, social opinion moves rightward. What drives people to vote for far-right nationalists? There are multiple insecurities drive people to do that. Not all people vote for far-right nationalists for the same reason. Still, we can divide them in three major groups. Culturalists. Those who have concerns about the erosion of our culture due to migration crisis, and that is why they share quite anti-immigrant attitudes. While the cultural argument does not reflect correctly what's going on, culturals are more likely to vote for far-right in any case. But they are numerically not so many. That is why, in order to become more prominent power extend electoral basis, far-right nationalists try to reach out the second group, materialists. It refers not only to unemployed, but a broad range of social groups experiencing economic insecurities. They include pensioners, students, different dependent groups, but especially it applies middle-income workers. Workers fear to not even lose their jobs and properties should any economic crisis break out, but many of them are worried about falling into the poverty. It is the working class which suffers more from deindustrialization and economy reshaping when the rich becomes rich and the poor poorer. As a result, they are turning to Eurosceptic, anti-immigration and far-right political parties for solutions. The main driver of radicalism and the far-right strengthening, especially in the West, accused to be the impoverishment of the working class.
I live at home with my mum because if I was to have a house of my own, it's too expensive because I need like £1,000 bond and like maybe £600 rent, and then with what I earn, it's not enough because I have to buy essentials for myself, my children, like nappies and milk and school uniforms, food, gas, electric.
Welfare state defenders. People protest whenever the state is unable to deliver on its social contract obligations, and it leads to increase of far-right party support. On the other hand, effective welfare state policies tend to mitigate that support. In other words, when the state is more generous, people in particular risky situation are less likely to vote for far-right and vice versa. Government effectiveness, regulatory quality, rule of law, control of corruption and social protection really matter for far-right national support dynamics. Many far-right parties today actually adopt strong welfare state position, precisely to attract voters. What makes them win is the ability to go beyond their traditional electorate bases and catch other groups, appealing to their discontent. Far-right nationalists today use more and more ideas of welfare state, neoliberalism and free markets. Consequently, it makes them not only appear more legitimate and attractive for a broader section of the population, but much more difficult to combat. Especially with regard to tendencies such as inability of left parties to counterpose any agenda that could successfully compete with the far-right ideas. The recent example is staggering defeat which the left-wing Labour Party, led by Jeremy Corbyn, suffered in UK parliamentary elections in last December.
This is obviously a very disappointing night for the Labour Party with the result that we've got.
But perhaps the most important and at the same time dangerous trend is that modern European mainstream centrist parties are gradually moving rightward. Unfortunately, this trend will only increase amid turbulence in the global economy and as a consequence, the active introduction of protectionist measures and a decline in the standard of living of the population.